The abdominal circumference is our final measurement, and it is the key to accurate weight prediction. And once we pass 24 weeks, hopefully we are not trying to judge the age of the fetus, because if we are, we're in trouble. What we are trying to do predominantly after 24 weeks is to get an accurate weight prediction. Now, these are all investigators who have tried to think of ways of accurately estimating fetal weight in utero. And what you can appreciate is that no matter what investigator it was, everyone used the abdominal circumference. So we're talking about Joe again, and I said, well, Joe weighs 250 pounds. And you say, I know two Joes that weigh 250 pounds. And I say, yeah, one Joe is 6'3" and has a 34-inch waist, and the other Joe is 5'3" and has a 40-inch waist. And immediately you know a great deal about the morphometrics of Joe number 1 and Joe number 2. In order to get that, you have to know Joe's belt size. So the abdominal circumference is the key to weight prediction. Now, Hadlock used various combinations of measurements, and again, if he used all 4 measurements, he got his most accurate weight predictions. So that's the way we typically do it. But notice that if you use all 4 measurements, or just the femur length and the abdominal circumference, you get very similar accuracies in weight prediction. A little bit better if you throw in the head than if you leave it out. Why does that actually work? It works because in the fetus, 25% of the fetal body weight is in the head. Imagine if 25% of your body weight was in your head. But ordinarily, when we're talking about Joe, and you say, oh yeah, Joe is 6'3" and has a 34-inch waist, or Joe is 5'3" and has a 40-inch waist, and they both weigh 250 pounds, you don't then turn around and say, oh yeah, what is Joe's hat size? You don't really care about Joe's hat size. That isn't going to help you determine body morphometrics in an adult male or female. But in a fetus, it helps a little. But what I think is wrong is to throw bad head measurements into a weight equation when what we really want is a very accurate femur length, how tall is Joe, and a very accurate abdominal circumference, what is Joe's belt size. So again, focus on the abdominal circumference and the femur length when predicting weight. Why is the abdominal circumference so important? The abdominal circumference is actually measured the way it is measured to predict liver weight, not belt size. We do not measure the abdominal circumference at the umbilicus, where we would typically measure Joe's belt size. We measure the abdominal circumference through the liver, because the liver is the largest organ in the torso, and the liver weight is significantly affected when there is both growth restriction and macrosomia. Also, the growth of the abdominal circumference is linear throughout pregnancy, whereas the growth of the biparietal diameter, head circumference, and femur length all trail off toward the end of pregnancy. As we've already seen, it dominates the weight equation. And if you are interested in knowing about asymmetries of the fetus, it is the key to understanding asymmetry. As I said, the abdominal circumference grows linearly throughout pregnancy, and that is an enormous advantage to us in weight prediction. Now, if you take Hadlock's equations apart and look at the percent change in predicted weight based on the percent error that is made. So 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50% error, what percent change in weight occurs, you can see that a 10% error in the BPD or head circumference maybe has a 3% effect on predicting weight. But a 10% error in the abdominal circumference is a 15% error in weight prediction. And that 15% error can get you into serious trouble. So we want accurate femur lengths and accurate abdominal circumferences in order to accurately predict weight. So unfortunately, the abdominal circumference turns out to be our most difficult measurement. Again, it has to be correct in 3 dimensions. We have to get the right level of the abdomen. We cannot incline the plane of section, and we cannot angle the plane of section to the perpendicular midline. So all 3 of those must be correct, which again means we have essentially a single plane of section that is absolutely perfect for measuring the abdominal circumference. Very similar to the head circumference, as we discussed a while ago. But the difference here is that the endpoints of measurement of the head circumference are excellent. You're measuring to the edge of the calvaria. The calvaria is bone. Very easy to see that edge. But the endpoints of measurement of the abdominal circumference is the skin. And the skin can be up against the placenta, it can be up against the myometrial wall, the fetal femur may indent, not the fetal femur, I'm sorry, the fetal thigh may indent the abdominal wall. The abdominal wall can have contour irregularities, and therefore there are many pitfalls in the measurement of the abdominal circumference. So, again, we need to look at the influence of normal anatomy on fetal measurements, and in the case of the abdominal circumference, we are interested in the fetal umbilical and portal venous anatomy. Look, as I've already said, we want to measure the liver. That is our intent. We're not trying to get the belt size of the fetus. We're trying to get its liver size. And if we're interested in the liver size, then the correct plane of section is one that is taken through the junction of the right and left portal veins. Why? Because the right and left portal veins define the portal plane of the liver, which is the dead center of the liver. Now, even today, you will see textbooks that tell you to line up along the umbilical segment of the left portal vein. Sometimes they just call it the umbilical vein. That's incorrect. And certainly, you do not want to measure low enough that you only see the umbilical vein. So you do not want to get measurement C because that inclines the plane of section. Why? Because the umbilical segment of the left portal vein in almost all fetuses is inclined toward the umbilicus. So if you line up along the umbilical segment of the left portal vein, you can see that it creates an elliptical margin. Now, the other thing that you want to know that this tells you you're at the right level. The symmetry of the ribs tells you that you have not inclined the plane of section. If you incline the plane of section, you will either see a rib and no rib, or you will see a rib and multiple ribs. So you'll see like 3 segments of ribs on this side. So you want to make the ribs symmetrical at the junction of the right and left portal vein. Typically in that picture, you will also see the stomach. But I'm not looking for the stomach. I'm looking for the junction of the right and left portal vein. Again, you do not want to line up along the umbilical segment of the left portal vein. That is wrong. That gives you an elliptical measurement. So, Here we have the junction of the right and left portal veins. Again, yes, we see the stomach. We see the symmetry of the ribs. And we have fitted the measurement exactly to the skin line. So we're going to say 177 millimeters is our correct abdominal circumference. Now, in this plane of section, we've got symmetrical ribs. We've fitted to the right end point of measurement. It's exactly to the edge of the skin, but we have lined up along the umbilical segment of the left portal vein, which means that this will be a more elliptical plane. And now you can see that that is 192. That is an 8% measurement error, which calculates to about a 15% error in weight prediction. Here we are too low. We don't see ribs. We see the umbilical vein and the gallbladder. We measure that abdominal circumference. It's 168 millimeters, which is too low. That's a 5% error, which is, in terms of weight, again, a significant error. So if these are the errors that were made, then we would certainly strongly consider remeasuring the fetus. But let's say that we made this error, a 5% error, but the fetus's weight is near the 50th centile, with the abnormal range being less than the 10th centile or greater than the 90th centile. Remeasuring the fetus is not going to take it anywhere near the abnormal range. So the fetus will still be normal. So I wouldn't necessarily repeat the measurement. Again, I would instruct the sonographer as to what the error was, so that hopefully, as time goes on, fewer and fewer errors will be made. Here, the beam was inclined. We can see there's no rib visible on this side and a single rib visible on that side. We have the umbilical vein and the gallbladder and the stomach. We see that the measurement is 182. So an off-axis measurement also makes a relatively small error. Okay, so again, it's not necessarily worth repeating and correcting the measurement error. What you want to know is magnitude and direction. The magnitude is too great. We want to repeat this measurement. Let's now talk about body proportionality indices. Again, the abdominal circumference is the key to body proportionality indices. The two most important ones from my perspective are the HC-AC ratio and the FL-AC ratio. Why the HC-AC ratio? Because we have this unique circumstance in the fetus where the same tube that supplies food also supplies oxygen. If we're worried about growth, we're worried about the food supply. But in reality, we should be far more worried about the oxygen supply. And the fetus has internal mechanisms which understand that. So if the oxygen supply goes down because the placenta isn't working right, the fetus automatically shunts blood to the brain to preserve growth of the brain at the expense of the growth of its torso. So the HC-AC ratio gives us an opportunity to detect growth disturbances that we might not otherwise be able to detect. Now, I have nothing against the HC-AC ratio. I think it's an excellent ratio. It's one that I look at in every fetus. I wish that whoever did it had done an AC-HC ratio instead, because with an HC-AC ratio, big fetuses have small numbers and small fetuses have big numbers. I would have preferred a ratio where big fetuses have big numbers and little fetuses have small numbers. The FL-AC ratio is important to us because it is the closest thing we have to a ponderal index. Again, Joe's belt size versus his height. So, Know the rules of measurement. Your job is to choose the plane of section and judge the endpoints of measurement. If you have the correct plane of section, then simple observation of the endpoints will tell you not only the degree of error, but the direction of the error. This is all you need to make a rational judgment as to whether the fetus is normal or abnormal, as to whether or not the measurement needs to be repeated or not. And this I cannot overstress. Avoid the temptation to make the measurement fit the menstrual age. It is a great temptation, but one that must be avoided at all costs.